Welcome to the Painter Marketing Mastermind podcast, a show created to help painting company owners build a thriving painting business that does well over $1 million in annual revenue. I'm your host, Brandon Pierpont, founder of Painter Marketing Pros and creator of the popular PCA educational series, Learn, Do, Grow, Marketing for Painters. In each episode, I'll be sharing proven tips, strategies, and processes from leading experts in the industry on how they found success in their painting business. We will be interviewing owners of the most successful painting companies in North America and learning from their experiences. In this series, titled The Tools to 10 Million, Michael Sutton of Kind Home Painting Company will be discussing professional tools to enable growth to $10 million. It is a 5-part series. In episode 1, Michael discussed the professionals who supported his growth and how you can find your own support network. In episode 2, Michael covered the books that have empowered his growth to date. In episode 3, this episode, Michael will deep dive into the key employees he could not do without. In episode 4, Michael will lay out the numbers that make his business thrive. And in episode 5, the final episode, Michael will break down the real challenges of entrepreneurship and how to overcome them. If you want to ask Michael questions related to anything in this podcast series, you can do so on our exclusive Painter Marketing Mastermind podcast forum on Facebook. Just search for Painter Marketing Mastermind podcast forum on Facebook and request to join the group. Or type in the URL facebook.com/groups/Painter Marketing Mastermind. Again, that URL is facebook.com/groups/Painter Marketing Mastermind. There you can ask Michael questions directly by tagging him with your question, so you can see how anything discussed here applies to your particular painting company. Mike, what's up, man? Welcome back.
Welcome, Brandon. I guess I don't welcome you, huh?
Dude, I'll take it. I'll take it,
Good
man.
to see you.
Good to see you, brother. So we are now on episode 3.
Yes, sir.
I love it. I feel like I'm just kind of along for the ride here. You know, you're walking me through how to build an 8-figure business here. So I'm certainly excited to learn. We're getting into key employees.
Yeah. It's key employees. They've certainly made a difference in our business. I could not have done this alone, and that's 100%.
Yep. Yeah. We just the series we did prior to yours was Jason Phillips' People Make Dream Businesses. And one of the things he's talked about is how he started kind of thinking he was running a painting company, and then he graduated, so to speak, into he's running a marketing and sales company, and then graduated again into actually he's running a people company. Turns out people are actually the fundamental aspect of business success, really.
Yeah. I couldn't agree with him more. Jason, those are very, very true words. I'm a little off track already. I met with a lady. I didn't meet with a lady, but I went to a conference yesterday, and Dr. Tasha Yorick spoke, and she is a clinical psychiatrist and psychologist that discusses self-awareness and the value that you have with self-awareness and being a professional, being a boss, being a CEO, and how important that self-awareness is. And I just want to, one of the quotes that she said is, the business of business is relationships. And she asked, how many of you wake up every day and go to work with the intention of developing and creating deeper, more meaningful bonds with the people that you work with? And I was in a room with, probably 300 CEOs. And I was sitting in basically the first table. So I couldn't honestly tell you how many people raised their hand. But from what I could see out of my peripheral, maybe 30% of hands went up. Said that every day when they go to work, they bring the intention of making those meaningful, deep relationships. I thought it was worth sharing. And relevant to what we talk about when we talk about the key employees that develop a business, or when Jason says it's no longer just a sales and marketing company, it's a people business. Yeah,
that's interesting. Yeah, I'm actually in a coaching group. Painter Marketing Pros is in a coaching group, and one of the things our coach has well, really been working with me directly on is the importance of that, of the importance of relationship building, growing. You know, as a leader, you are there to serve your team. Your team's not there to serve you. And how in his experience, the most successful of entrepreneurs, the CEOs who really truly grow big thriving businesses, whatever they want that to look like, do tend to be the absolute best at relationships and people.
Yeah. You
So let's
know,
get into some of these roles, man.
yeah, I'd love to. And I know we've kind of touched on this maybe a couple times in earlier series, but um, I figured we just kind of walk through some of uh, the outline and the times that I brought on key people who
Okay.
were there specifically to support the business, and they stopped kind of producing, and when those moments were.
All right, that
So
would be great.
um, I think that that's a question that a lot of people have is when do I make that first hire and who is that first hire going to be?
Yeah.
Um, I will share my first hire. And this is something I talk about often, but my now wife, her name is Whitney, from before I began the business, she said that she would join me. And if I really wanted to do this, that she would absolutely work for me and be my partner. And she is hands down the most talented and capable person I've ever met. And I say it with no jokes aside, she is incredibly good at everything she does. And she was that first key employee that I couldn't have done this without. Um, she had a weird title at the time, and she still kind of goes by director of miscellaneous. Uh, um, and from day one, I needed help. My forte and what I love are people. I love humans. I love relationships. I care and I'm invested in the success of others. Uh, I'm fairly okay with numbers. She happens to be good at everything else. So from day one, what her responsibilities were managing the phones, scheduling the appointments for myself, as I was one of the first salespeople on the team, um, scheduling the jobs, being a primary point of contact for our clients. She was committed to converting leads as we had leads come in. And on day one, we were advertising on Home Advisor, Angie's List, Yelp, Thumbtack. And her job was to convert those leads and get us in front of clients. On top of the phones, her role was build the website, manage the website, build our contracts, manage the contracts, build the lawn signs, do all of the graphic design, put together every job description that we have. Anything that took words or creating, she made.
Building this whole thing, man.
Yeah, she did. And what I did the sales. I was with the salespeople every day. I hired the salespeople. I hired the project managers. I interviewed the crews. I onboarded the crews. I met with the crews in the beginning. I met with the project managers in the beginning. And I couldn't have done that if I didn't have somebody who was prepared to help run all of the back end administrative stuff.
Yeah.
So where I started was hiring that first person to kind of like run the office, run the phones, run our office, and manage the tools.
So if you're a solopreneur, you're just getting started out in your painting business, what you should do is get married. You should marry someone incredibly competent and then have them co-found it with you.
Yeah, that's the perfect plan. But I would say a jack of all trades assistant
Yeah.
who can absolutely run the phones. That's a really important component. In order, if you're going to be in the field, and I think that's where a lot of the smaller painting companies begin to struggle is that they're both trying to be behind the brush, answer their phones, and convert the leads. And there's just not enough bandwidth for one person to do that.
You know, it would be really cool. So, hi, Whitney. I assume you'll listen to this. I don't think that I'm not sure I've connected with her except for the very first time that you did your first episode with us and you didn't know who I was. and you were kind of tense because you're like, this guy's kind of weird. And we're doing this podcast from a hotel room, I think. But as you and I have connected a lot more and our friendship has grown, I don't think I've seen Whitney again. So what would be really neat is if she came on. I'm throwing this out live. This is how I do it, Mike. I just go
Yeah.
for it. We record it, we don't cut it, we just let it go. If we had her potentially join us in episode 5 as we get into the struggles of entrepreneurship, because I'm pretty sure if you've gone through some hardships and struggles, I'm willing to bet she has too.
That's one of the challenging things about being in business with a spouse. Unfortunately, the stresses that one person experiences, they're shared.
Yep.
Every step of it. And maybe that's something that happens in marriage, whether you work together or not, is that
Yep.
when one person has a stressful job, the partner ends up shouldering some piece of it as well.
Yeah, I don't think you can ever fully silo that. At least I haven't been able to figure that out with my wife. So I think it kind of comes with the territory. You just have to figure out a way to adjust the best you can.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. And we talked about what did we hire in the first year, and for us personally, Whitney was our only manager. She managed the office people and she scheduled appointments, whereas I managed the sales, the handful of salespeople we had. We came into year one with 3 salespeople and 3 project managers that we pretty much hired on day one, and I managed that team and the door-to-door team while she managed the office and all administrative. So
Yeah.
by
So
the end
Jack,
of year one was when we started bringing in somebody else to help with management.
okay. So the first hire for you then would be a jack of all trades, someone who, if you're out in the field, if you're doing that stuff, if you're selling, who can really manage the back end, the administrative, that kind of stuff. What if you're not maybe as extroverted, you're not into the selling? Would you potentially do it the reverse as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Had I been good at doing anything, I could have maybe seen that happen the other way.
Yeah.
My challenge, the first and hardest thing that I ran across was, how do you build a proposal? A good looking contract and form that I could use. I spent dozens of hours trying to make one, and then she made one in 30 minutes. What? Okay.
When you realize it's not your biggest skill set right there.
Oh, and mine's ugly. It looks like, I did it in some weird program, and she makes it pretty and presentable and professional immediately.
Yeah.
And if that is your forte, that is your skill set, then absolutely lean into that. And you need somebody to bring in the sales.
Yeah.
And I do believe that sales should be a full-time job. 100%. It's, we're structured a little bit different than a lot of painting companies in that our project managers do not do sales and our salespeople don't do project management, and our project managers are in the field. What I have found over 12 years of selling paint jobs is that it is difficult to close a paint job immediately following the phone call that says, your guys just flooded my basement because they left the hose on. And if you get that phone call 5 minutes before you walk into an estimate, it is very difficult to want to win that job or to put your best foot forward. And I found that separating those two components of the business allows for a salesperson to stay clear and focused, to live in unicorns and rainbows,
Yep.
and have somebody who's in the trenches dedicated to customer service and fulfilling our satisfaction guarantee.
Yep. Fixing any issues that arise while not having huge blows to the confidence or not wanting to necessarily compound those problems by selling another project.
It's 100%. And when you use subcontractors, you run into that consistently where He's like, gosh, I don't want to get these guys a single other project. I don't trust them. And you
Yeah.
don't know who that next crew is or that next team who you might be using is going to be. Um, and I've seen people self-sabotage their own appointments because they're afraid of bringing on additional work right now because they're concerned with the fulfillment.
It makes
Is that,
sense.
have you experienced that yet in your business?
We've done a pretty good job of not growing too quickly, and we've grown pretty quickly, but for us, it's really been about systematizing. We've had hiccups, every company does. But haven't had a huge issue, fortunately. The interesting thing about what you're saying is you're talking about estimators and project managers being kept separate, which is something that Jason Phillips is really feel strongly about, and a lot of people that I've talked with, they really feel like that skill set's different. A project manager and a good project manager is unlikely to be the best salesperson and vice versa. But you're the first person that I can recall having actually spoken about this other issue, which even if you had a kind of a unicorn person who could do them both great, excellent attention to detail, also a sales killer, goes out and gets it done, but they're going to have to deal with mind games when they get the bad news or they get the angry customer or whatever's going on the back end. Now they have to walk in and pretend like everything's great, no problems here. That's a tough balancing act for anybody.
The people who can do it are special.
Yeah,
And
like a multiple personality or something. Like, oh, I'm going to go into this person and then I'll go back to that person when I'm done the sales call.
yeah, and we're in the painting business. I don't think a lot of people, I don't know if many people have said this on your particular show, but I think the painting industry might be the hardest home service industry, bar none, hands down, period.
Interesting. It's a bold claim. Why?
Um, it has the lowest barrier to entry.
Yep.
Anyone can be a painter. I would say 90, 95, maybe more percent of our clients have painted something in the past.
Mm-hmm.
How many of a heating and cooling company's clients have replaced an igniter?
Probably pretty small percentage.
I would argue that it's less than 90% of the
I would
people
agree
who have
with you.
actually done the
I'm
work.
not going to take the counter side of that argument.
um, so when you're working with painting, it's something that everyone does. There's no hard, fast set of rules. This is the right and the wrong way to do it. Ask somebody if you cut in by hand or if you cut in by caulking tape on any forum, and you'll see even the split
Right.
opinion within painters.
Yeah.
Um, from air quotes professional painters and their variants of opinion, versus if you ask a mechanic how do you replace anything, a transmission, there's a right way to do it and there's a wrong way. There's a right way to fix a furnace or install a furnace. There's codes that write how the work is completed. There's code in plumbing, there's code in HVAC, there's code in electrical, but there's not code for how do you do a paint job. So when a client says, no, this line isn't in the right place, I can't believe you would call yourself a professional painting company and put a line 1/16 of an inch on my ceiling. How dare you? Um, and that's a very real conversation from a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Um, you know, and you're like, well, that's how you mask a ceiling is that you have to draw a straight line, and I can't cut it directly in the center, so we tape it very small onto the ceiling and make a beautiful, crisp line. And this particular client thought it was the worst decision you could ever make.
Yeah.
Uh, now we show pictures of the where the line will be prior to starting the work.
Nice little improvement to your SOPs there.
Yeah, it's just, hey, we're gonna have to talk about where you're gonna draw this transition. Um, how I can't tell you the amount of conversations that we have over transitions, whether it's on the exterior of your house around a vinyl window, whether it's around where brick meets trim, and you have very terrible sealant lines, um, those things can be really difficult. And I think it makes painting more difficult than HVAC or plumbing or electrical. Um,
If you could go back, 5 years, would you have started another company?
no,
You'd still be in painting. You like the challenge.
it's exciting.
Mm.
Um, and it's just what I happen to know. It's what I've been doing. It's what I've worked with 15,000 clients up to this point with all of the complaints, and it's a conversation that we know how to have. Um, Easy doesn't mean I'd rather do it. I'm also not a licensed electrician or plumber.
Yeah.
So have you heard anyone talk about those challenges within the painting business before?
Yeah. I mean, the low barrier to entry is obviously a challenge, the chuck in a truck, right? Um, Idea of people coming in, undercutting you, underbidding you, people thinking the substitute of the do it yourself. Well, I could just do that. I could just paint the inside of my house myself. Why am I going to pay you $5,000 to do it? I think for us, where we have really found success with our partners is targeting the right people. So that the upper end demographic, a lot of the people that our partners work with, I think have not actually, they don't seriously entertain the do it yourself option. They may have done it themselves, back in
Yes.
college or whenever, but it's not a real substitute in their mind at this point in their life. And then the professionalization of the sales process. So just how you convey that value, how you pre-sell that estimate or proposal, however you want to discuss what you're doing. When you go out and you actually present the quote and you take the measurements. I say that because Jason Phillips calls it a project consultation, but most people know it as an estimate. So when you go out and you do that, pre-positioning your company so you're not selling as a commodity, right? You're decommoditizing your business. So we have a lot of stuff we do as part of our sales and marketing program to actually pre-position for the sale. And if you get I always say, get the right lead through the door and then give them a reason to pay you more money. And you do that through decommoditizing your business. But I don't need to tell you that, Mike. You're running like a $14 million company after 5 years. So yeah, the low barrier to entry is a challenge, but it is also an opportunity because you also have a bunch of idiots out there running, right? Like to put it blunt, you do have a bunch of idiots out there running painting companies or quote unquote painting companies. And so when you kind of educate the homeowner about the risks, like, hey, maybe licensing isn't required in this state or whatever. And so anyone can join. Here's what you should look for in a professional painting company. Here are some of the risks that entail hiring the wrong company. And here's what we do to make sure you get a quality product. We guarantee it. We have a workmanship warranty and kind of pre-positioning why you are worth more than potentially the Yahoos that are coming in before or after you.
Yeah. You know what? On the sales story with that part's super easy.
Yeah.
It's the fulfillment side that's shocking how aggressive people can be about a 16th of an inch.
Yeah. Yeah, that is. Well, especially I would assume in the interior, because people can get pretty finicky about their space.
Yeah. You know, and it's always about where did you put that piece of tape? I
Hmm.
can't believe you would tape here and not there. Um,
Maybe in another 5 years, Mike, you won't be making these rookie errors that you're making with your taping right now.
oh man, if somebody has a solution for getting those. Um, and that's really the key to our project managers is being there to be on site, to have those conversations and to talk drum with our clients.
Yeah,
I put it on a board right there. It says, if you tell them before, it's a reason. If you tell them after, it's an excuse.
I like that.
Um, and I have an entire board full of expectations that we could have set earlier on that
Yep.
would have been frustration from a client.
Yeah.
And I have an entire whiteboard full of them. You know, a common one that painters may have experienced is what color is the trim board underneath that gutter? And the majority of times when you paint a house, a trim board behind a gutter is body color on one side and trim color on the outside, because you spray the body and you'll roll the gutter by hand. We're talking about this much of a trim board that you can see that's body color. And they go, well, I don't understand. Why is that body color? Well, because you don't cut in there. And that's how all of the houses are built. All of those boards are that color. And when we point it out ahead of time, they don't get upset.
Yeah.
But when we see it on the back end, they think that you're cutting corners for not painting the trim board that color.
Sure.
Um,
I really like this running list that you have, of things that you now know, of complaints or conversations that you've had to have due to potentially not setting the proper expectations. And you guys are, aiming for 14 million, you're 5 years in. So it's not like you're just starting and you still have this running board of things. So I think that for anyone listening, that's, to me, it's pretty eye opening because you would think, man, you guys are an 8-figure company. That's a really big painting company, relatively speaking. You guys have it all figured out, but yet you don't. You have a huge board of stuff that you realize you didn't have figured out. And so you always want to be improving your process.
Improving and training. And that project management position is something that we couldn't have done without. Absolutely, hands down. We needed project managers to meet with our clients, not salespeople, and not me. I didn't have enough bandwidth to do that from early on. And it's making sure that they're capable to do what they do exceedingly well, which is have great conversations with clients, listen, fix problems, and make sure that we're on the same page.
Yeah. So I know it's probably the inverse of this. At least that's what we've experienced at Painter Marketing Pros. But I think one of the hesitations people have, let's say you're kind of early on a painting company, maybe you're at 500,000, maybe you're getting close to $1 million or so, and you are out there and you're thinking about, okay, pointing this stuff out on the baseboards or having this conversation with the transitions, and you might be hesitant because you might think, well, if I start pointing all these things out or I start kind of getting ahead of them, I could lose the sale. You could say, oh, well, they're not going to do this, or, oh, that's how they're going to do it. Whereas if I just kind of make them feel really good, say, hey, don't worry about it, we're going to take care of it, then I'm going to close this sale. What would you say to somebody who's concerned about pointing out too many things because they're worried about their close rate?
Oh, man. This year is the year of no's.
Motivational, inspirational. We're getting ready for episode 5.
And what I have found is it's oftentimes easiest to say yes, or to avoid something, or take on something that's slightly outside of your specialty or scope, thinking that I need that one project.
Yeah.
And what I've found over the last 5 years is those things take 80% of my time. You end up with a handful of clients that just chew up your bandwidth, your mental space, and oftentimes you see those red flags or those concerns early on.
You do.
And I know my first year as a salesperson, selling paint jobs, I wasn't working for myself, and I fought hand over fist, tooth and nail for every single client. I had something like a 54% closing ratio my first full season selling paint jobs.
It's a great closing ratio.
It was too high.
Yeah. Profit margin needs to go up a little bit probably at that point.
The margin was too high, and we were fighting for CD clients, and we weren't focusing on AB clients. And what we've done is we've really profiled what does an AB client look like in our world, and how do we get more of them? What does a CD client look like, and how do we avoid them? So we've put in definitions around both of those terms. And we've defined what an A, a B, a C, and a D client looks like. D clients will often say, no, I want you to do it this way. They'll say, no, this price seems really high and you're not doing this certain work. Or, hey, your price is high and I need you to go tomorrow. And so now they're negotiating on timing. And I saw someone share something recently about a combination of red flags. and you're only allowed to have so many red flags before you say, no, client, we're not going forward.
Yeah.
One of those is unrealistic demands about timing and negotiating on price.
Yep.
You do both, we're not the right fit for you.
Yeah, I've heard different kinds of scales of that, PIA, pain in the potential clients.
Yes.
We've definitely we had to release a few, over the years at Painter Marketing Pros, people who, so we've kind of learned to identify concerning trends. For us, one of it is when they try to pick apart our process. Like
Yeah.
we have a pretty holistic process that works, and they say, oh, well, you do this, this. What if what if we don't do this and this and this? Well, then that is you should probably work with another marketing company that's less effective. Right. That's what that is. If they come in and they tell, well, how about how about rather than two coats, let's just do one coat, or what would that do to the price? As soon as they start picking apart your process, a proven process, now all of a sudden you can't stand behind any workmanship warranty that you had. You can't stand behind any kind of guarantee that you had. And now you're going to put out work and your name's associated with that work. And when that paint starts to chip or whatever starts to happen with your project, you're the company that stinks. And I guarantee you that customer, that homeowner is not going to say, well, they actually told me they were going to do it this way. And I really didn't want to pay that much. So I talked with them. And that's why, no, they're going to say, yeah, the company sucks. So you have to stick to your process.
Yeah. They say, well, I asked them to change what they do.
Yeah. No,
Really?
they're not going to take ownership of that. I promise you that. So you
Yeah.
have to stick to your process.
Yeah, very much. And to stick in line with that, the second major hire that I had for a full-time position was somebody to come in and manage our lead flow.
Mm.
Which might sound surprising to a lot of people, but when I was working with clients as much as I was on either the front sales end or the back production end, for me to fully manage the lead flow was near impossible.
What do you mean manage the lead flow?
Manage lead flow. So we do advertise with pretty much anything that you can.
Yeah.
Angie's List, Home Advisor, you name it. Yelp, House, Nextdoor.
Starting to see why you have all these CD clients, Michael.
There's lots of AB clients.
Yeah, fair enough.
I think year to date we've sold over $10 million of revenue off Home Advisor.
Wow. Year to date?
No, excuse me, 5 years.
Oh, okay. I was like, are you doing like 60 million this year? Okay, got it. That's a good amount of revenue.
So sometimes the clients can be a little bit challenging. But again, it's just finding the right ones.
Yeah.
The ones that align with your core values, the ones that align with your proposition fit. But managing all of those faucets, managing the SEO,
it's a
and
lot.
Click, managing relationships with our vendors and our lead sources, and then also being in charge of doing the additional things that need to happen from time to time. And we do knock doors. So it's making sure that at whatever cost, we've got the amount of leads coming in that we need.
So if they're seeing a dip in one thing that was working, and then maybe, okay, it's time to have more door knockers hit the street, they're basically going to be monitoring that, making sure that the engine's running.
Yeah. And when, for whatever reason, it slows, being able to pivot and make it. And we added somebody full-time to manage the lead flow at the end of our second season.
Nice.
And that was managing SEO, managing vendor relationships, managing all of the faucets.
And that was your first, that was your second full-time hire. The first was essentially Whitney, the jack of all trades, managing the back end operations. And your second was this person full-time to manage all your different lead flow sources and make sure the leads keep coming in.
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And your hires, the timing of those was, the first one was essentially immediate. And then the second one was basically 2 years in.
Yeah. About year and a half.
Year and a half in. Okay.
Where I started realizing, wow, and I think the number was somewhere around needing 2,000 leads a year.
Okay.
where we recognize, oh, this is more than I can handle myself.
Was it you who was managing all that before? Was Whitney doing it? How was it happening?
It
It was
was me.
you. So you were managing all that while you were also conducting all the estimates and everything else.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a lot.
And I realized I needed some time
Yeah.
uh, to work on other components of the business.
Where did you find that person?
Um, Indeed,
Is that where you find most of your employees?
it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's different schools of thought about whether Facebook ads are better, whether if they're on Indeed, it means they're not employed sometimes, which means that they're not going to be as good. Different people have different opinions about the importance of the lead source for employees, just like people, have different thoughts about the lead source for customers. Is there a particular reason you focus on Indeed, or is just you tried it and it's been working, so you just use Indeed?
Really just worked.
Yeah. Don't
Uh,
don't fix it if it's not broken.
yeah. You know, and it's crazy how much things have changed in 6 years. 6 years ago, we were putting ads for painters on Craigslist.
Yeah.
Uh, we tried to run one last year just to see what would happen. And sure is different.
Quality is improved, right?
It has. It sounds like Craigslist is doing well.
Yeah. It's thriving.
It's thriving. No, yeah, Indeed is where we do a lot of our hiring. It tends to be the primary place. We haven't honestly worked with too many others like Monster. And of course, we do things on, post the jobs on LinkedIn and Glassdoor and other places, but uh, we really do our interviewing and hiring off of Indeed.
Awesome. Okay, so we have these first two positions. We're at a year and a half. What was position number 3, and when did that come in?
Yeah. So the third person was kind of I don't know how to say this, but maybe like an executive assistant.
Okay.
It was a gentleman who another miscellaneous type role who helped with all of my day-to-day management and helped me with my projects. So this is something that maybe a lot of business owners fall short on. It's certainly an area where I fell short, was on budgeting, on forecasting, on job costing, pretty much anything that I needed Excel documents to do. I fell short on those. And I hired somebody who excelled at Excel. And he is an Excel genius and whiz, and he came in to help me manage all of those spreadsheets. Now the difference, there was our business was substantial at that point. And it got to the point where I needed help not fulfilling paint jobs or getting paint jobs, but actually managing the business side,
Yeah.
managing the scorecards, building the scorecards, making sure that the numbers were accurate that we were looking at and tracking, and making them clearer for the team. Uh, the other component that he was helping with was our pricing, making sure that we had outstanding and consistent pricing for all of our salespeople.
And when did he come in?
Oh, right around the beginning of year 3.
Okay, so what were you at revenue wise when he came in?
Maybe 5 million, 4 million, something around there. Where
So
I said,
you were at 4 or 5 million with 2 employees and yourself.
no, no, no. I'm gonna say those are like managing positions.
Okay. All right. I was getting very confused here. My bad.
No,
Okay. So you had obviously project managers, you had painters,
we have
you had all this running, but these are essentially middle management type positions. These
yes,
are your key hires. Your first one was the ops assistant, essentially a
yeah,
jack of all trades at $0 basically.
yeah,
Then the year and a half in, managed lead flow. What were you at revenue wise for that position?
about 3.5, 4 million.
Okay. Okay. So 3.5 to 4 million. And then an
Yeah,
executive assistant to basically fully support you in all the spreadsheets you need, the job costing, make sure your estimates are consistent across sales people. That was at beginning of year 3 and at 5 million.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the two departments that we had were sales estimators and project managers.
Yeah.
And those kind of stayed and grew with us as we went.
Do you have someone managing right now all the project managers or a sales manager? And if so, when did those roles come on board?
Yeah. So that was towards the end of our 4th season.
Okay.
And I put a director of operations in charge of both sales and production.
Indeed.
And nope, he was an internal hire.
Internal hire. Okay.
Yeah. So that was a promotion. And he has been running sales and production for, man, how long has it been? 21, August, 2 years, coming up on 2 years here in August.
He was a project manager.
He was a salesperson.
Really? I would not have expected that to be a salesperson. Interesting.
Um, Absolutely. And it makes a lot of sense in my mind for when you have a client who's a little frustrated or is on the fence or trying to say, this is why we drew the line here versus there.
Yeah.
What's the most important thing in that conversation? Probably sales. You're selling why your guys put a line a 16th of an inch on the wall versus the ceiling, and why it didn't go perfectly in the center where that wall meets the ceiling. It's about having persuasive conversations with our clients, persuasive conversations with our painters, and persuasive conversations with our project managers. It's leading with excitement. And the advantage to having one person over production and sales, well, when people call for pricing on something and a sales manager tells you a price, what if that price was not right? Who has to deal with it? The production team. So we've taken that kind of production versus sales mentality that happens in all kinds of businesses, and they happen, in every home service and all kinds of warehousing and manufacturing. You have sales versus production.
Yeah.
But
They're out selling it, and then production has to figure out how to make that work.
yeah, I sold it. It's their problem now.
Your problem. Exactly.
Well, we made it so that if one person said, well, I sold it, your problem, it's your problem.
Still your problem.
And things like that come up with a lot in exterior painting. Client, the estimator said that you could resand and repaint all of our vinyl windows. What? No. And we've had that conversation. Well, if the estimator said we would paint all these windows that you should never paint, now what? And how do you get out of that? So, and we've gotten to the point where Tom is no longer managing both sales and production. He now has a production manager, which he manages, who manages that department. And then we have he really focuses on sales now.
Interesting. It's like another level below him on the operations side.
Which that took every bit of 5 seasons to get to a point where he was managing a manager.
And Tom's who I just met.
Yes.
Awesome.
And he's worked with me for 7 years. And his background was in construction. But he's really done sales for me for 7 years and still does as necessary.
That's great, man. So we have quite a few key positions now at this point. Ran through the first 3, the ops assistant managing the lead flow, your executive assistant, Tom, who is the manager for both ops and sales, and now the manager for ops below Tom, and Tom managing still sales directly, and now managing the ops manager.
Yeah.
What other key positions, or are there any other key positions that we haven't hit?
there's one other piece of leadership that has developed, which Whitney used to manage our account managers. And she stepped aside from that. But as Whitney has stepped aside, she still does a lot of the miscellaneous work. We do have somebody dedicated to managing our appointment setters.
Mm.
So, but we have a team of 5 people who set appointments. And what I have found, once you reach the capacity, like once you have a team of about 4 or 5 people, you really need somebody dedicated to supporting them, developing them, and managing them.
And that's just any department, 4 to
Any
5 people, you need to have someone over them at that point.
It's yes, and you're in such this difficult thing as you scale a business because you're always stuck asking yourself, is this the right time to hire somebody?
Sure.
When do we need a manager? At what point do you hire a sales manager? And I've had lots of conversations around this. Or you have a single salesperson on the team and they say, yeah, we're getting ready to hire another estimator, and I'm thinking I'm going to be the sales manager of that person. Financially, it becomes really difficult for a company to sustain management until you have a certain level of volume.
Yeah.
There's a book called Scaling Up by Vern Harnish. It's very similar to the Rockefeller habits. And they talk about those scales in business where you go from one person managing everyone to starting to develop teams and starting to build out departments within a company. And they call those valleys of death as you grow from one scale to the next. And there's a valley that happens.
Encouraging.
I read the book somewhere halfway through our 3rd season, and I was like, man, I wish I would have read this before I tried to make the jump from 2 million to 8 million. And I don't remember what exact transition I was in, but we were right in the middle of trying to hire one of those. And I go, oh, that's why this is so stressful. It makes sense where this stress was coming from. And I'm not alone. And this isn't a home service phenomenon. This isn't a painting phenomenon. This is about growing and managing people and how do you actually scale within those departments. And there's like a gap that goes from 400,000 to 1.2. That might be a valley. There might be a valley that's 1.2 to 5. And then another valley that happens between 5 and 10. And then you do reach the next jump is pretty large, where it's going from 10 to like 25 million. So, have you read Scaling Up or Rockefeller Habits?
I have not. No, I'm very interested now though about this scaling up in the valleys of death.
It's an incredible and you could probably just read that one chapter and say, wow, this really brings to light what it looks like when I'm scaling and those pain points that you have.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, it's why we put one person in charge of sales and production, because I had 8 people. And at 8 people, I knew that they needed two teams of 4. I couldn't afford to have a manager managing 4 people. I certainly couldn't afford to have 2 managers managing 2 teams of 4.
Yeah.
We could afford 1 manager to manage all 8 of them. And that's something I'm not certain that people recognize is the expense that management cost. Because you're pulling somebody away from actually producing revenue, from managing clients, from adding direct bottom line value to kind of just an expense that you struggle to quantify what they bring in.
Yeah. You're kind of betting when you bring in managers. I view it like you're kind of betting on the continued growth of your business. And if that manager's not there, it's almost like a hire for the future. If that manager's not there, as you continue to grow, this train's going to come off the tracks and it is not going to work. So because you plan to grow, you need to put someone in there to keep the train on the tracks as you get bigger.
That's very, very well said, Brandon. You're growing into the shoes.
Been there, man.
You couldn't say it better.
Yeah.
And frankly, they're wearing shoes that are too big for them every time, and we've had to scale into it.
Yeah, man, that is great. So we have some really key positions here. Now, the order that you did it in, do you feel like that's a pretty good order for anyone to follow? Or do you think that a lot of these positions could kind of shift around? Or how do you believe that applies to different painting companies, different scenarios?
I think what you mentioned, where what if your skill set was different than mine?
Mm.
That you have to pay attention to where are your blind spots. My particular my blind spot is in the marketing. It's in graphic design. It's in website creation. It's not what I do. It's not what I'm good at. Um, and I struggled there, and I recognize that. My strengths are in management, customer experience, customer service, and sales. So I was able to manage those much further, and I could do it passionately. Now, if that weren't my passion, you might want to shift it. Um, I was at a men's group this morning, and one of the gentlemen, he's a CEO, runs a tech company, and he's building a CRM. And he was sharing an experience of the fact that he had hired a sales manager, a vice president of sales, and that vice president of sales kicked him out of the office and said, "Look, Doug, you need to quit coming in. This is my place, and I've got it. I've got it together, and we're going the direction that we need to go. You got to give me the room to do it. Get out of here." And they celebrated how strong and how powerful that was because he made the right hire. And Doug's particular background, maybe he's not the best salesperson, but he hired the person who was phenomenal at it, and then he trusted him to do the work.
That's
And,
cool.
had I been slightly different, a different person, maybe I would have done it differently. If I had passion around managing ad spend and pay-per-clicks and impressions and A/B testing, maybe I wouldn't have brought somebody on to help manage that. But it's not what my blind spot, or it's not what my strength is. It's a blind spot of mine.
Yeah. So hire people to fill in your gaps so you can focus
Absolutely.
on what you love doing and what you're the best at doing.
Yep. And that goes back to I could tie it back to the self-awareness that we talked about. Um, that being self-aware of who you are personally and leaning into those strengths is so valuable. And being honest with yourself about what you're good at and what you aren't, and hire to complement you would be my advice to somebody in that position who's thinking about who do I hire and when.
Yeah. Man, I love that. Yeah, I think people are under this impression that there's a set person, a set order in which they need to hire. And if they don't do it, then they're messing up. I think that you have to keep certain things in mind. You have to keep the financials in mind, especially with management. You need to know your numbers. You have to know your margins. But then knowing yourself, if you're doing what you are best at, your best God-given skill, the thing that you care about, that you want to do, and then you hire someone else who's doing what they like doing and are best at, then that's going to be a much more powerful company because you have two people doing what you're good at than if, well, I'm the owner and I should do this, even though I'm not that good at it, or I'm okay, or I really don't like doing it. So I'm going to have someone else do this. And that person may or may not be the best in the world at that. Now you have two people kind of doing adequately, as opposed to two people doing great. The company with two people doing great is going to go a lot faster.
Yeah, incredibly well said.
Yeah.
And I can only share what I've been through, or what I've seen other people experience.
Mike, I appreciate you, man. I appreciate this. You being willing to kind of peel back the curtain here and take us through the growth of your company. Because again, your numbers are impressive, man. There are not a lot of company owners that I've spoken with that have seen that kind of rapid trajectory. So I super appreciate, I think our listeners super appreciate getting to know your story on a much more granular level.
Yeah.
because it makes it real for people, right? Shows people what they can actually do. You have anything else that you want to add before we wrap up this episode?
Yeah, it'd probably go back to traction, and it's the very first chapter in Traction by Gino Wickman talks about letting go of the vine. And in order for a company to truly succeed and to flourish and to grow and to scale, you got to let go and you have to trust other people to step into the positions, which can be one of the hardest components of this.
Scary.
It's scary to let go.
Baby. Yeah.
You let someone else do something. But the beautiful stuff starts to happen when you let go and you see it grow. So I'd encourage people to let go of the vine, give it to someone you trust.
Let it go. Mike, thank you, man. We'll see you back here for episode 4.
Awesome.
If you want to learn more about the topics we discussed in this podcast and how you can use them to grow your painting business, visit paintermarketingpros.com/podcast for free training, as well as the ability to schedule a personalized strategy session for your painting company. Again, that URL is paintermarketingpros.com/podcast. Hey there, painting company owners. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Give us your feedback. Let us know how we did. And also, if you're interested in taking your painting business to the next level, make sure you visit the Painter Marketing Pros website at paintermarketingpros.com to learn more about our services. You can also reach out to me directly by emailing me at brandon@paintermarketingpros.com, and I can give you personalized advice on growing your painting business. Until next time, keep growing.